Hey everyone, Paul Altieri here from Bob's Watches. Thanks for tuning in. Today we have a really special watch here that just came in. We're going to share that with you. As most of you know, we get our watches directly from the public. Some of them are really rare watches with some cool backstories. This one does in particular. So we're excited to share that with you. So thanks again for tuning in. Also, if you haven't done so already, please make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel so you can stay up to date on all of our video releases as they come out. Every day we get in dozens of watches from all over the country, but this one is something really special. Now, I still haven't seen the watch yet in person, but I've seen a lot of images and photos of it. It's a vintage Rolex Submariner that is coming into us directly from the COMEX diver that owned it. So I can't wait to open this box up, see it for myself, and hold it in person. Beautiful. Look at this watch. It came out great. I love it. All right, we've got a vintage Rolex Submariner 5513 reference. It looks like it's from the early 1970s. There's a beautiful matching patina on the tritium dial and hands, but the real party piece of this watch is right here. A helium escape valve on the side of the case and a COMEX engraving on the case back. Rather than catering to the growing recreational scuba diving crowd, COMEX focused on commercial diving and deep sea exploration, performing pioneering work in the budding field of saturation diving. We're talking about testing chambers and experimenting with different gas mixtures so that humans could dive deeper and stay down even longer. As the company that invented one of the world's very first dive watches, Rolex shared a common goal with COMEX, as both brands were interested in reaching greater depths and progressing mankind's ability to explore the underwater world. By the beginning of the 1970s, the practical applications of saturation diving were becoming apparent, and Rolex had even gone so far as to release the Sea-Dweller in 1967 as an updated version of the Submariner that was able to contend with the complex conditions of deep saturation diving. In addition to offering a greater depth rating than the Submariner, the key feature that defines the Rolex Sea-Dweller is its helium escape valve, just like the one featured on this reference, 5513 Sub. Now, the helium escape valve is one of the most misunderstood concepts in the watch industry. While it exclusively pertains to deep sea diving, it actually has nothing to do with water resistance. When diving at extremely deep depths, the nitrogen in the regular air we breathe normally becomes toxic to us, and so it's necessary to replace the nitrogen with a different type of gas, and helium makes the perfect substitute. During saturation diving, divers breathe special gas mixtures and live in dry, pressurized chambers below the surface. This allows them to not only work at depths otherwise unreachable by regular scuba diving, but also to stay at depth and not need to go through a lengthy decompression stage after each individual dive. Instead, the divers only need to go through decompression once at the very end of their assignment before resurfacing, and as this process can take multiple days, the divers are able to decompress in the dry chamber once all the underwater work has been completed. And now here's where the helium escape valve comes into play. This isn't a problem as long as the watch remains under pressure at depth, but during decompression, when the pressure inside the dive bell decreases, the trapped helium models inside the watch expand, creating a positive pressure inside the case and often forcing the crystal to actually pop off. To contend with this unique obstacle, Rolex patented a one-way valve that automatically actuates once the pressure inside the watch reaches a certain level. This allows the trapped helium molecules to safely be purged from the case. Pretty interesting. Again, this only occurs during the decompression stage, and that takes place inside the dive bell. So the helium escape valve really has more to do with this watch's ability to adjust to decreases in pressure rather than anything to do with the ability to withstand external pressures. Although Rolex's first watch equipped with a helium valve first debuted in 1967, it was still very new technology at the time, and so Rolex partnered with COMEX in 1970 as a way to get additional real-world testing data on their various designs and innovations. So it was a great partnership. As part of the strategic partnership between Rolex and COMEX, Rolex would provide COMEX with these watches, the Subs and the Sea-Dwellers, basically at zero cost, and in exchange, COMEX would provide Rolex with detailed notes on the diving and how the watches performed during these dives. The interesting thing about the Submariner watches that Rolex issued to COMEX is that despite the fact that the Sea-Dweller had debuted just a few years earlier, many of the sub watches they sent to COMEX also had helium escape valves fitted to them. Later into the partnership, Rolex began fitting the COMEX Sub and Sea-Dweller watches with dials that featured COMEX logos, and they even created the reference 5514, which is a model specific to COMEX, which is essentially a no-date sub fitted with a helium escape valve, just like this one. However, this Submariner is not a reference 5514, but rather a standard reference 5513 that has been modified by Rolex with what could be considered a prototype helium escape valve that was used for development and testing purposes. This watch features a 2.8 million serial number, which gives it an estimated production date of 1971. It makes it an early example of the COMEX issued Submariner watches, and this is supported by the fact that it is a reference 5513 rather than a reference 5514 or a later era Submariner model fitted with a COMEX branded dial. It is also worth noting that this particular watch isn't what collectors called a pre-COMEX either. The dials that receive the COMEX branding on them have slight variations in regards to their printing that separated them from the other non-COMEX Submariner dials of the era. Consequently, the dials that possess these traits but do not have the COMEX logo are often called pre-COMEX Submariner watches by collectors, but the dial on this particular watch is not one of those. The fact that this watch is a more or less standard matte dial reference 5513 Submariner that Rolex retrofitted with a helium escape valve suggests that it was one of the early Submariner watches issued to COMEX, and its 1971 production date helps confirm this, as this was just 1 year after the partnership had started. While this Submariner by itself is both rare and incredibly special, the fact that it came to us directly from the original owner means that we get to hear the story behind it and share it with all of you today. Included with this watch are both photos of the original owner from his days working with COMEX, along with a letter of provenance that details his experience as a commercial diver and how this unusual Rolex Submariner came into his life. I joined the British Royal Navy in 1962 at the ripe old age of 15, leaving in 1973, having traveled the world in many countries, loving the sea and its creatures. I wanted to become a commercial diver and joined COMEX Diving from France and was trained in many aspects of diving using diving bells and mixed gas. My watch was given to me by COMEX and reported on it to Rolex and sent back to them for updates and cleaning, etc. My watch has been with me all these years. It has seen 600-pound groupers, hammerhead sharks, sea snakes, and to look at it gave me great assurances we have traveled to places no one will ever see and traveled to many depths and situations. I hope this little narrative gives you some idea of where she has been. I have lots of stories, and as I said earlier, this is bringing back memories of lost friends. We are known as pioneer divers throughout the world. Sincerely, Stuart L. What makes this watch so special is that the reference 5513 Submariner was never supposed to have a helium escape valve, and a configuration like this was never made available to the public. This Submariner is essentially a prototype that Rolex produced for testing and research purposes, and since the vast majority of these watches were used for serious professional diving, many were damaged or destroyed over the years. This one is in extremely good shape. Stories like this is why we do it. Not only is this watch itself an incredibly rare and important model that is emblematic of a defining time in Rolex's history, but it has a great backstory too. And now we get to be part of the next chapter in this remarkable history. For more information on Rolex, COMEX, and this highly unusual Submariner, be sure to check out the full article on our site, and you can find the link for that in the description below. So thanks everyone for watching. We hope you really enjoyed it. Don't forget, if you haven't already done so, subscribe to our YouTube channel so that you can stay up to date on all our great content.